Jock Campbell. He's the founder and owner of Jock Athletic and was the physical performance manager for the Australian national cricket team. Jock, how you doing?
Great, mate. Great to hear from you again. You're going really well over here.
Brilliant. It's great to see you. And of course, I can see it's nice and warm for you over there. I do feel like it's role reversal.
Yeah, I thought it was just audio, mate. So I rugged up nicely. But yeah, it's very cold over here, but we'll be fine.
Perfect. Perfect. So, Jock, just a little bit before we dive into our topic of today, just a little bit on your journey, really, around cricket and your early memories around the game.
Well, it's really interesting, mate. When I was a young kid, my brother and my dad loved cricket, and I couldn't stand it. And it was the Ashes that actually got me into it. I got up one night, my brother was up, and I had to go to bed. And I said, "Dad, well, how come he's allowed up? Well, he likes the cricket. He's watching the Ashes." I went, "I like the cricket too." So, so I got to stay up and watch the cricket. And then my brother brought me a cricket bat for Christmas. And again, I said, "Oh, I don't even like cricket." And he'd saved up all his money to buy me a bat, and I was behaved terribly, and my dad pointed it out to me, and then I went up to him and said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. Can you throw me some balls?" And that was it, mate. I just loved it after that, and it's been, like you, it's been my life ever since.
Yeah, well, that's a lovely journey. It's a lovely story. And so, I mean, just Jock, a little bit around how you got into sort of being part of elite cricket and how you came to be where you are today, I guess.
Yeah, it's well, I just loved cricket, and I finished school and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And again, my mother or father pointed out there was this new course called sports science, and which I'd never heard of before, and it was all about sport, which of course I loved. So I did that, and you had to pick a sport that you wanted to specialise in, and there was no question. I actually wanted to do two. I wanted to do cricket and athletics, but they said, "I'll just pick one because that'll be enough." And so everything at university was targeted towards fitness in cricket, conditioning for cricket. It helped my own cricket. I tested it out on, played with Sydney Uni at the time and cricket club, and I tested it out on the whole club. They let me, take the fitness over, and it wasn't really that overly well received in those days. And some very smart men saying some very interesting things. Like, one question I had for one of the first grade batsmen, and he was a really smart man, he was a lawyer. I said, "Mate, how come our club never scores hundreds? Like, we're always getting out in the 50s and 60s, and to me, it looks like everyone's fatiguing and playing poor shots." And he said, "Oh, yeah, but you can bat through that tiredness. You don't need to be fit for that." And, but wouldn't it be easier if that tiredness came on when you're like 120 or maybe 150? He goes, no, it's mental. You just bat through that tiredness. So, those were the early days of trying to bring it in. But I got to work with a very young Stuart Clark, who I played with at Sutherland, after he'd had a stress fracture. And, I had so much experience in training cricketers when actually jobs came into cricket. And I worked out very quickly I wasn't going to play for Australia or New South Wales, but, I played a lot of grade cricket, and like you, mate, just loved it. And so when jobs did come into cricket, I was the only one that actually had specialised in cricket. And early days, there was very little research around, very few research papers. So, you were just adapting other sports and what worked in other sports to cricket. And, even Dennis Lilly's back recovery from his back operation in the 70s, that was one of the best papers there was. It was done by Dr. Darryl Foster. And so a lot of what he did would stack up well today. So, that's how I got into it. And I was just lucky. I was in surf lifesaving as well. And that, in the mid-90s, probably the pay for a surf lifesaving athlete, which you guys probably wouldn't even know over there, even though you've got quite a few good athletes, so the Ironman, beach sprints, all that, there was quite reasonable pay in that for the athletes. And it was very similar to what the top cricketers in Australia were getting. And then surf lifesaving lost their sponsorship. Cricket, well, we all know what happened with cricket. And so there were jobs in cricket. There wasn't in surf lifesaving. But I'm still heavily involved with the surf lifesaving as a coach. But cricket's, they're my two passions. And that's how I got into cricket.
And so I suppose, before we move into our topic, just quickly, I mean, Jock Athletic, I've been very fortunate to train with you, as much as a lot of other young aspiring cricketers and athletes for that matter have been very lucky to train with you. I mean, what's your mission with Jock Athletic? I mean, why did you start it? What was your sort of, I guess, your drive for it?
Well, I'd done a lot of sports, and I'd particularly, done a lot in cricket. I had young kids, a couple of young kids, and I really wanted to start something where I could be home. And I'd also it's a common problem with coaches on cricket tours and who work 12 months a year in cricket is I hurt my shoulder. Started out, I think, demonstrating a weights activity to Andrew Simons, actually, to name drop. And then because you just constantly had to throw all the time at training, it just got worse and worse. And eventually I just tore my rotator cuff off the bone. And because I was not using my right anymore, I was using my left. I did my left as well. So I had to get operations on both shoulders. So I sort of was out of touring for a while. And I just sort of wanted to be able to run my own race as well. Like, I loved training athletes. I probably had enough of touring. But I wanted to do it my way, and so I went to my mate who Watto, who you would know. He's in England at the moment. He's in Dorking. He's been over there for many years. And I said, mate, he was the Penrith strength and conditioner, Penrith Rugby League, and they just won the comp recently in our National Rugby League comp. And I said, mate, why don't you come and be Paul with me and start up our own business? And he said, have you got a name? I said, yeah, Jock Athletic. I'm sorry, I came up with that before I decided to ask you. I said, you can be the athletic bit and I'll be the jock bit. And so we sort of, and then I went and asked my wife, Mel, to come and help run it. And she had a very high paying job at the bank. And so same thing, come and be Paul with me and start our own business. So, just to train like guys and girls that want to be their best. I thought I could do it really well. I had a lot of experience, and I get young cricketers, and I like to see their, journey from a young kid all the way through. So before I used to get the state and national players that were absolute best, and I had to help them get better and stay on the park, and I loved it. But then I started thinking, well, wouldn't it be good to try and develop some of these players all the way through, from juniors all the way through? And I do that with athletics, surf lifesaving, and cricket are my main ones. But we've had baseballers that are now got scholarships in the US, and rugby league players come and sometimes do a bit of pre-season. So it's just a really wide variety, and that what you put into athletes is what you get out of them. If they're committed and you're committed to them, they'll go a long, long way. So it's been, I just love it. I'm still involved with cricket, but this is my main thing.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And thanks for that. And I couldn't agree more with you. In fact, you may not have seen, but we had an England athletics coach on, former coach of the year, on last week or the week before, I think, explaining very similar things to yourself around athletics and, how you create physical competency and how you can move through that gears and how it will help you with whatever you want to do, really, moving forward in life. I mean, so just going on to the topic of today, which is conditioning in cricket. I mean, you were very much a pioneer in strength and conditioning around cricket, as you'd already, alluded to earlier in our piece, that, it wasn't really, it was a mental thing, not actually broken down and thought about the physicality around how much effort it takes to achieve certain goals in cricket. So, I mean, for me, I think the biggest thing I learned when I met you, Jock, was around your mindset and your management of conditioning players at all different stages, all different ages, with pre-existing conditions or, none. Could you explain a little bit around your experience in that area, or any advice you'd have for people?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I mean, like you say, that we've constantly got players at different levels, with injuries, etc. And it took a while. Like, if you compare it to having a team, you're with the team 24 hours a day. Like with a national team, you know the players inside out. You know everything that's going on with them. It's quite It's not easy, but it's easy to manage in your mind of what everyone needs to do. And probably for sport, I've always had a really good memory, and for athletes, I've had a really good memory. If someone hurt their ankle 5 years ago, I'll remember that. And if they go over on that ankle again, I go, oh, is that the one you've done before? And they're even shocked they can't remember. I don't know why that is. It's just, I think I'm just so interested in what I'm doing. So I think it's one of those things. Saying this to a young coach last week, if you're 1%, 2%, 3% not committed as a coach, people will pick that up 100 miles off. It's something you can't fake. And cricket's a really good example. So there's some sports where when the athletes had enough, they sort of, they probably play another season of rugby league because you only play 1 day a week, and they'll get through it. Whereas a cricketer, and there's a couple that I've seen, and you can tell as soon as they're 1% or 2% not committed, it shows, because you're there every day, all day. It's just one of those sports you can't fake. So I sort of think that's, as a coach, I'm just really passionate about all my athletes, and want the best for them. So if someone, we've probably got 150 athletes at the moment, but I've got several coaches. But I know if someone hasn't turned up to a Monday afternoon session, we've got 2 or 3 running sessions going on. Then we go to the gym. I don't even have to look at the role. I know, oh, Jess is not here today. I wonder, she might be sick. Did she have an exam? And I'll text her straight away. It's just because, like in your mind, you're calculating, if she misses that session, that's going to, that could be the difference between winning and losing national titles. So we had last week, 3 weeks ago, we had national titles in surf lifesaving, and 2 of my runners, the open men's and open women's in the endurance event, they won, and they were both coming fourth with 500 metres to go and looked almost out of the medals and came storming home. Now, they won by, inches. Yeah. And the difference between winning and coming third or fourth or second it's like a world away. It's like the difference between winning a World Cup and coming second, mate. Who cares who came second? That's the way history looks at it. So in my mind, I can calculate how many sessions, if they had missed 3 sessions leading into that in the last 6 weeks, they probably wouldn't have won. So that's how finely tuned it is at that top level. So to be the best, you've got to pay attention to all these details. You've got to, and one of these girls, Chloe, who will be really embarrassed if I mention her, she had a sore foot, and it had been sore for a while. And I was a bit worried about it because it was in an area where it could be a stress fracture, but we managed it really well. I knew if I took her to a certain physio, they'd put her straight in a boot and she'd be out. That'd be it. And this might be the only national title she ever had a chance of winning. So I took her to a physio who was quite forward thinking. And he said, well, look, it's in a difficult area, but it doesn't hurt for her to run on sand, which is our surface. So I'm happy for you to keep her running on sand, provided it doesn't get worse. We're not going to get it scanned because it might show up a stress reaction. It might not, but if it shows up a stress reaction, that might ruin her mentally. Anyway, so we took her off the track, which hurt most. She didn't run much on the roads, but we kept her off that. So she was able to do all the training sessions, just they were on sand. So, which was our specific surface, so specificity of training. And the pain slowly went away. And now she's back to running, over 15 kilometres a day. But we would go in all the training sessions and she just won. She just had enough training in her to win. So that was me keeping an eye on exactly what was happening, listening to my athlete and just sort of knowing the plan of what to do and getting it early enough. And so when you're managing lots of players, it is difficult and it's challenging. But if, there's plenty of software around there now that, and the GPS that I use with Channel 9 a lot, but I think it's a very overused tool. But you've got to listen to your athletes, take notes, whatever way you can do to remember these things and to individualize their programs and to make sure, they're doing the right thing and you're doing the right thing for them. You've got to find a way. It's not for everyone. And And coaching, I took a level 1 strength and conditioning course for all my coaches that work with me the other week. And I said that, I said, look, the majority of the work you do as a coach, you're not going to get paid for. I said, the phone calls you have late at night, the one-on-one sessions you do with your athletes, you think, need it, or the rehab sessions, often you're not getting paid for that. But it's not a good way to run a business, and it's not a good business model, but it's a great coaching model, because I'm available 7 days a week, and that's stupid, but my athletes train and play on weekends. So if they need help, I need to be there for them. And just this Saturday, we've got sand hills in the morning, which you've done.
Yeah.
Beautiful sand hills. And then I've got my son's soccer game, and then my daughter's soccer game. And then I've got my athletics club. It's their 100-year anniversary, St George Athletics. And there's a New South Wales title on that weekend. So I'm at running all afternoon with my runners, and I have to drag my kids along because Mel's away. And then all my runners will have their long run on Sunday, and the cricketers have training. So it's just a 7-day-a-week thing. But that's the coach's life. And if you don't like it, don't do it. But I love it.
No, that's brilliant. And I mean, it's so insightful, and I'm sure our viewers are now starting to realise just how much Jock, around this area. I mean, so just a little bit, I guess, of a hot topic in cricket that has been for now many years, really, around fast bowling and managing their loads, and also allowing them to recover physically and mentally. I know you've done a massive amount of work in this space, and have also developed a groundbreaking app with a very famous and well-known cricketer that will certainly be known well over here as well for tormenting us. Feel free. I mean, let us know. Tell us a bit more about this app, Jock, and how it came to be, and some of your experiences with, arguably some of the best fast bowlers that have ever played the game.
Well, it's really, the way you started that is exactly why we developed it. There's so much known about fast bowling and workloads and reducing injury risk, but it's not known at every level. It's known at the higher level, but it's not known where it really needs to be at that 13, 14, 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid space. And so that's what we help a lot in our academy. Like every intake of fast bowlers we get for pre-season, we screen and test them. And I guarantee you there'll be 2 new bowlers that come to us. And in our screening and testing, one of the most important ones is, have you had injury? Have you had back pain recently or in the past? And several of them will put yes. And I'll ask them, okay, when was that? Oh, towards the end of the season. All rightio. Did you do anything about it? No, I just thought it'd get better as I went. What did your coach tell you to do? Oh, just stretch. And said, okay, let's go on further. Was it dull pain or sharp pain? Oh, no, it was really sharp. So, these are telltale signs and real clues on that's stress-related bone injury, more likely. So in our screening, we'll pick up 2 bowlers that might have had 3 months off since the season, and they've still got stress fractures that they didn't even know about. So we send them off before we start them to get scanned, and they come back and, they're out of cricket for 4 months. Now, if we'd known these bowlers, and we would have hopefully picked that up before it turned into a stress fracture, because I'm lucky I've got the great Errol Alcott, the physio for the Australian team for 25 years, who lives at Carringbar, 2 kilometres away. So any sign of these sort of injuries, go and see Errol, and he'll get them scanned, and generally we can catch them before they turn into a stress fracture. So that's how simple it is for it to happen. And what happens is these young bowlers, they grow sort of at that 13, 14 years, they have a growth spurt. So all of a sudden their levers are a lot longer. They bowl quicker, they've got extra bounce. And in Australia, and I'm sure it's the same in England, they'll go from playing in their club side on the weekend to maybe a few junior age rep games, to all of a sudden they're in a school team, they're in a club team. The club team wants them to play men's cricket because they're bowling faster. They then play in the rep team, and they play Green Shield. And so all of a sudden they're in 4 or 5 teams. They go from bowling once or twice a week, 6 times a week. And there you go. They've got a stress fracture. No surprise. Like I call it the fast bowling cliche because it just happens so regularly and we know enough about it to stop a lot of it.